So right off the bat, I should say that I'm a creative sort, just like lots of other people. So I've always done creative things. That means I have painted, written poetry for a long time. That led me into my career, which was in television broadcasting, as visual arts. The stuff I do now really just came along about 6 years ago, all of this. Because as I was raising children and focusing on my career for a number of years, a lot of things kind of hit the back burner and just simmer, and you find yourself just doing crafts with the kids, which is different for a while. But then once I was an empty nester, it was like bam, unplugged. Holy cow. It came on with a vengeance. All the ideas I think I'd been storing up for years came out. And I love a challenge, so I love working within the confines of something. So as much as I had ideas, I wanted to repurpose things so that anything that people were going to be discarding that was kind of neat and I thought I could do something with it, I took it. So the whole idea was to create new beautiful things from stuff that's being thrown out. And that is my, that's the parameters that I try to work with. That doesn't mean I never buy a new thing, like I have to buy new glue, new earring hooks, some of the wire, but all of the bling and stuff is all repurposed. And I also like working with nature. That's kind of where some of it started 6 years ago when we were out east. If you've ever been out east, it's full of cool, gnarly driftwood, sea glass, seashells. There's just so much out there that inspires, and that's where it all kind of really started ramping up. And that's when I started driftwood walking poles, because the driftwood is very light, very strong, and just cool. Super cool in how it's shaped. And so I've made and sold quite a few driftwood walking sticks and canes and things. And then it just evolved out from there. Like the sea glass, I was collecting that, as they all do out east, but I was seeing it like a precious gem, whereas out east it's commonplace. They collect it, they put it in a little dish on their bathroom counter, and I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. So I'm collecting it. And I'm making these sea glass hangings, and I started getting wire and wrapping the wire around them to make things, like not necklaces like they do, but I was making like sea glass flowers and things, and then hanging it on a piece of driftwood and stuff like that. And I still do that, but I kind of came through that phase where I just churned it out like mad for a while. Now I just do it now and then still, So I do find I go through phases. But interestingly, I just want to say one thing, going back, I remember always thinking that I felt pretty confident with my portraits. I got good at that because I did it a lot. Some painting, which was mostly portraits, but three-dimensional art, which is what I called it, where you're assembling things, putting something together to create a three-dimensional item, I was horrible. Oh my God. I look back at brooches I made my mom when I was like in my teens and even my early 20s, and it looked like a macaroni necklace to me. It's like I was terrible at it. I could not, like I could see all the pieces I wanted to work with, and I had this vision, but I just couldn't figure out how to make it work together, So it took a lot of years of maybe ignoring that. And then when it came back out full, it was like I just knew. And it was funny because once I said two things happened in the first 2 years after empty nesting. The driftwood was one thing. The second thing was we rented one of the cottages we rented the 1 year we went out east. It was in Nova Scotia. It was this quaint little cottage. When we rented it for the week, she said, "Oh, by the way, I have some paints and canvas in the cupboard over there. If you feel so inclined, go for it." Oh, so I did, and it was the first time in decades. Because my children were raised, they were out the house, and I was like, I hadn't touched a paintbrush in decades. So I picked it up, and next thing you know, I'm painting the landscape that's out there, and I didn't do landscapes before, and I didn't do much acrylic oil, and that's what I was doing. Next thing you know, we're running into town a couple days later, buying paints for me and canvas so I don't use up all her stuff, and it's been nonstop since then. It's my happy place, having all that as part of my life again. Rather than just a piece of it sitting there in the background. It's really good. I can be shut down and locked at home if I have this stuff. After a while, and I start making things, more and more things all the time, I gave a few things to family as gifts, but they're they're not all appreciative of the same vibe of things. As you know, you all wear different styles of clothing. And yet I was getting compliments from people who did see it, other people. So I thought, okay, I gotta try selling it, because it's gotta leave. It can't all stay. I'll be the hoarder person, you know? So that prompted me to start, to have to seriously come up with a name. So I came up with, while I was out east, the Grumpy Toad. And that's because absolutely everything out there is weird and quirky. You know, it's like, I don't know, the Snail's Head Bookshop. It's like they've got all kinds of odd names that are just fabulous. So, I mean, I was in the right place to come up with a name. And then when I came home, I painted, it's an 11 by 14 acrylic oil of what I envisioned the Grumpy Toad to look like. And that's what ended up on my business cards. So from a marketing perspective, I now owned all copyright aspects of it to change it as I see fit, you know, like ownership and authorship, so I can change it. So that was the marketing side kicking in. And then of course my son helped me create a website, and I started putting it online, and then next thing you know, I'm participating in artisan booths around town as things happen here and there, and it's just kind of grown from there. So today I still sell things in 2 shops in Prince Edward Island. More the driftwood sea glassy stuff. And here in this area, in North Bay and surrounding area, I have 3 stores I'm in right now, and items displayed in a restaurant. I do a lot of dream catchers, so I'm in a restaurant where the owner is Indigenous, and she likes having the dream catchers there. I kind of like doing the booths. I only do them a few times a year. Like, fall fairs are actually really enjoyable. A Christmas art show or 2 is really, that's fun. And sometimes a spring one, like a Mother's Day one, and that's about it. I only do a few because I do work full-time elsewhere too, because this would never pay the mortgage. It is awesome and fun, and it sells, but not enough to pay a mortgage. So yeah, and the goal isn't selling. The goal is just, it's actually just rehoming because it can't all stay here. So I'll bring these in first just to show you. So, do you see gnarly? This is not even the gnarliest, but it's like super light, super strong. The grain on it is just gorgeous. I did not paint that. I tend to cut them to where I want them. I sand them. Sometimes I will embellish them with a light stain or something, but the ones that have beautiful grain, I don't do anything to them beyond a clear sealant on the end. In this case, this is a cane, and it's a reverse handle. And this is a root burl from Northern Ontario, drilled and inserted and glued inside. And this piece here is from Prince Edward Island. So I painted the root burl to look like an apple with flames. Don't ask me why. It just seemed to be the thing to do. And there you go. The wildest grandma cane ever. This one is, this has also got awesome grain. It's got like green in it. And I usually try to make sure there's a good handle, like a good spot where your hand is comfortable on anything I make. Mm-hmm. And this one has a geode in the top, repurposed beads, twine, and it's of course sanded and sealed. Gorgeous. This one is sold. And it's actually a snake and an apple. So the root burl, I painted this as an apple, is inserted inside this. And this is actually, it's driftwood, but it's a root. It's a tree root, a small tree root. Some of the ones I make out of, you know, inspired pieces sell at booths, but really they've kind of prompted people to call me and ask me to make a custom one for so-and-so for their birthday or for Christmas or whatever. So I've done quite a few custom ones, you know, different heights and different vibes on them. My husband will attest to how much driftwood I have hoarded out there in my workshop. The car's full when we come back from the East Coast. You know, it's just, it dries like it's the salt water and the sun. It dries so light and tough. And I've worked with a bit of driftwood from this area, and depending on where it is, because it's not salt water either, it doesn't help with, you know. Sometimes it's mushy in the middle, like it looks nice and solid, but it's mushy in the middle. So I've just really stuck with the East Coast stuff, and it's strong and light and gnarly. those are the three things I really like about driftwood. So I did a workshop in my home. I limited it to, I think, 5 people, and this is going back 2 years. And so I figured out a price, and I provided the glue, and I provided the driftwood that I had sanded and prepped for them so they could pick from a variety of pieces. And I told them to bring anything heirloom that you have because your mom, your grandma, or somebody gave it to you, but you don't know what to do with it. Bring a bunch of stuff, and we will make hangings. You know, it's like it just gives it a new life, rather than the spoon is in the drawer, the jewelry's in a little thing on your counter, and you never really, you look at it once in a while. So it's just a way of, you know, giving stuff new life. Yeah. So the driftwood went from walking sticks and canes to other pieces, like, I'll show you a few other pieces. This, for example, is a talking stick. A talking stick has indigenous roots in the chief circle. And the idea is that nobody speaks except the person holding it. So it also guarantees everyone has a chance to speak, including the shy ones. You know, rather than them having to put their hand up or anything, which they will not do. Once the stick comes their way and everybody's waiting to hear their words, they can just talk. It tends to be a feather quite often in indigenous circles, but it can be anything that you've given the importance of it being a talking thing, okay? So I found this and I thought it really looked to me like a mythical tree sort of or something. So I painted it up that way and put repurposed beads on it. Anyway, so that was one thing. Just finding ways. I do dream catchers because I am Métis and I just have an interest in it. And I love weaving. It's like, it's peaceful. This one is intended to be a starry sky, hence the crystals. These are repurposed from a chandelier. And then these are just totally random repurposed bits of string and stuff. And this is a cool gnarly piece of driftwood from the beach. So I'll use it in different ways, the driftwood in different ways like this. If it's got, like the one I showed you at the beginning, if it's got an area where I could weave within it, even if it's not a perfect circle or anything, I'll do that. This is the one and only magic wand I made so far, and it's out of driftwood. And it has, I sanded it, I stained it this teal color, and then used spar varnish over top because I wanted it to have a really thick, shiny, solid, you know, look to it. I did a leather wrap with stitching, and then I drilled and inserted this quartz crystal in it and soldered around the edges, so there's melted metal there. And then I inserted repurposed bling all around it, like there's a key here and bead, and you know, there's just bling on it. I like contrast, so something delicate and sparkly opposite something matte and natural appeals to me, and I like how they look together. Some of the first earrings I made, like button and bling, they're super light, they're all long, I don't do short anything, and I have kept my own 2 or 3 pairs that are my favorites, and I swear to you, they become your daily. They're your comfort earrings, you throw them on. You can wear jeans with them, or you can dress up for work. They seem to work either way. I have a lot of different styles of earrings, but my button ones have become my favorite. And some of the driftwood that I have, we started cutting it for me to make jewelry because I wanted to try it out, rather than just hangings and you know, walking sticks. And it was shaped like a foot, so I did a whole series of footprint earrings, and all the feet are different. They're painted different colors, and there's no two alike. So anybody. Like if anybody asks me, I like that, but can you do you have another one like that? No, I don't. I can make you one similar, but I cannot do the exact same thing. I find that when you're making a bunch of stuff like this, when you just are really in the groove, there's a fine line between making art, which is carrying out your visions, and manufacturing. Manufacturing is no fun. So you have to watch that when you're, once you start selling, like in a store, or you start selling a bunch of stuff, you can easily get caught up in manufacturing. People will say, well, if you can make me like 10 of these and bring them in, I can sell them. By the second one, I'm bored, because each one I make right now, I have an inspired vision for it. I want to try this color and that bling and do it this way. And, I have what I call the One Love series. I wanted it to be positive messaging around acceptance of diversity, okay? Tolerance and acceptance of everybody. And it kind of is inspired by Bob Marley, of course, his song One Love. that says it perfectly. So I started creating a line of jewelry. I've sold quite a few of them, but mostly at booths, of earrings, which is shaped wire and it's painted. And it says, One Love. And it's got a bling on the end. Because I work with repurposed things, there's a tiny chance that people like me who are doing that are a bit ahead of the curve, where society hasn't fully come to terms yet with having repurposed things in something that they're buying as new. I really would love more people to start looking at things they're going to throw away through the lens of what else can I do with this? You know? Like, we have to stop living like we have somewhere else to go. Don't assume you have $100 million to pay Elon Musk to take you to Mars for a less than ideal world. You know, like, we're part and parcel of this planet. We drink the water from it. We eat the food grown from it. You know, we have to stop poisoning it. I mean, if I could equate it to something, people who buy a car and value their car, they don't put Coca-Cola in the gas tank. Right? So for living on Earth, you have to think the same way. And looking after yourself, you have to think the same way. I think wire came along because I was already playing with it with my sea glass. And then I was doing dream catchers too, and so the two ideas kind of collided, and hence you get, you know, so I thought I would do I think it was a dragonfly I first did. And then a butterfly immediately after. And they've, just like anything you practice, I've gotten better at it over time. This one's a butterfly, in case you can't tell. And it's repurposed bling all in it. Dragonfly. Now this is wire weave, and this is gold thread weave. So I go back and forth between them depending on the end result I'm trying to achieve. But just to tour you through here, like this was part of a necklace, a blingy necklace. These little bits, I pull them out of the holders of things, whether it was a necklace or earrings or whatever it is. I pull the bling out and I repurpose them here. This was an earring. It's gold with a little tiny pearl. This is a vintage frosted marble. I have a bunch of them. And then paint. And then, of course, everything gets sealed. I always do a spray seal at the end just to protect it a bit so that the first bang it gets, it won't chip. The paint won't chip. Yeah, so now you get the idea where things come from. The three things I've commonly been doing are the butterfly, the dragonfly, and the bees. This is the first time I've done two different kinds of bees, because I've been doing the queen bees. Some of them were a tiny bit bigger than this even. And the queen bees always look a bit like a warrior queen. I like to give them a bit of a plate of armor, but a crown and everything else too. This is a honeybee. And honeybees, worker bees, are daughters and sons of the queen. And they all get bling in their wings. So there's sparkly bits that have been pulled out of necklaces there. And when the sun hits it just right, you see it. This is a vintage military button. And it's got the royal crown on it. And then I looked it up once because I've got a bunch of military old buttons. Looked up to see what it was, and I can't remember what that one is. But they all tie to some regiment in the Army or Navy or Royal Canadian Air Force or the British Forces. So I can't remember what that one ties to, but I thought it was totally appropriate that it be on the honeybee. I started doing, I love steampunk too. Started doing steampunk feather earrings. So rather than the soft feathery things that you're used to seeing as earrings, I wanted to make them steampunky. So I just love making them. Right now, there's a bunch of them that I have at a store in Kearney, and it's called Nostalgia, and they put it online. She brought them all, the ones that I'd made, like in one trip, so that was very cool for me, and she's reselling them. So these are steampunk feather earrings, and I will be making more again, because I really enjoyed doing that. It's like piecing together a puzzle. I used all the clock parts I had, and then I went looking for, this is an odd side story, I went looking for more clock parts because I enjoyed working with them. And I couldn't find them in the area or Ontario even that were what I wanted. I ended up finding them online, and they came to me from the Ukraine. It's still upcycling, you're right, so it doesn't matter where it comes from really. You're saving it from going into the ground. So, This I'm not quite done. I'm still working on an element of it. As much as it looks like a fairy ear that I've been working on, this is a barrette. Okay, and it's got real feathers in it. These are African parrot feathers. A friend of mine has an African parrot, so when it molts, she gives me some of the feathers. The other wire things I've been doing are fairy ears, which it's unique jewelry is basically what it is. We don't have a big market for it here in the north because it's more conservative here. But there is the odd person who really likes it. I have sold some. It's just designed like a Bluetooth at the back, so it pops on and then there's a clip that grabs onto your lobe. There's one of them I think that has a stud in it so that it slides on, and then there's an earring stud for pierced. That, you know, one way or another, I was experimenting with different ways for it to hold on, just to make sure it doesn't fall off when you're wearing it. This is a necklace chain that I've taken apart. This is from an old necklace, this blingy bit. These are just random pieces from jewelry that's been taken apart. This was an old hoop earring, and I painted it gold. And the same with this on the inside. This is a vintage piece of jewelry, this sparkly bit. And this is silver, like real silver. It's actually coin silver. I got a bunch of stuff that was seconds from a jeweler who was getting rid of it. Salvaging. And yeah, so that's where that came from. This one's a little more gypsy looking. You know, more beads, a little less fancy, a little more, I don't know. It's funny to describe fairy ears like this is for everyday wear. I really like this one. This was made with silver-plated wire, so it's quite different from the others altogether. Old brooches are fantastic for working with. The costume jewelry they had, they're really lovely. These boxes, by the way, were repurposed too. I got a whole case of these jewelry boxes from a store that no longer needed them. They just weren't working, they weren't dealing in jewelry stuff anymore, so I got that. Yay, nice find. I'm running out though. I gotta find more. This taps into my Métis side. I love this neck piece. It wears really well. Like it's intended as a choker piece to just hang here. There is a photo of this beautiful young Indigenous woman on my Grumpy Toad Facebook page. I submitted this and a pair of earrings to an artisan I've met online through Instagram. She's in Manitoba. She's also Métis. We like each other's work. That's how it kind of connected. Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. So she does a fashion shoot every year to showcase her Métis capotes, which is made with repurposed Hudson's Bay blankets. Fantastic, right? She does a photo shoot. So she gets artisans to, we pay just a little bit to be involved, and then she dresses, you know, the models in her capotes and the jewelry that's been submitted, and then she puts it out there, and the photos are gorgeous. So we get to use all the photos that showcase our work. That was the deal, and I thought, that's fantastic. I'd love to do that here. I don't know if I'm the one who can orchestrate it, but I would love to do that here. And what it succeeded in doing was the models were paid, so it brought work to them, recognition to them. It helped those of us we're Métis, so we're kind of on the fringes. So it brought recognition for us too, because the photos are beautiful. They really were shared a huge amount of times online between all of us tagged. And then CBC radio, or CBC television, I think it was. CBC picked it up anyway as a story in Manitoba, so it's gone out through CBC now too. And the picture they used was of Ocean, who was the model that wore this particular thing. So it's her picture wearing my necklace and earrings. Yay! So those things, like partnering with other artisans and that, is really a good way to get yourself exposed, you know, more out there. And there's another one. This is pretty. Just, I took a necklace apart, an old necklace, and these are mini bobby pins with blingy bits. They're so pretty. And this was a necklace chain. I just take apart two of the chinks and open one side up a little bit, and it becomes like a clasp. So when it comes to those pieces, I never go buy from a store for those pieces unless I absolutely have nothing I can work with here. So quite often I'm taking apart necklaces, old necklaces, to create the clasp here. Or the other thing I'll do is like this one is a drawstring with just a little piece on it to hold it. I'll do that as well. Or a bead or a button. See, this one has a slide bead. And that's, so it's adjustable for the different wrists. One thing I would say for sure is if you're going to create things, create for you first and foremost. Like follow your ideas to create things. It has benefits for both building your creative thinking. It is soul satisfying. Anybody who creates right now and is isolated at home will tell you the value of making things because it feeds your soul. So first and foremost, make it for you. Like follow your ideas and make it, and don't worry what other people say. That's the second part. Once you, like the people who get your work might not be the people you hang around with. You know, that doesn't mean it has no interest or value or whatever. Or in my world, like how I've dealt with that is if somebody says, okay, I love these earrings, but can you do this and this and this with it? I can absolutely do that as a custom piece for you. It's not how I'm going to change everything I make. So you can deal with it that way too. There was an art shop downtown, and it was one of the few at the time. This is going back about 5 years ago now, because after a year of churning out stuff, I had to find places to sell it. So, and at that time I was doing mostly teacup hangings, which were driftwood, and they had bling, and they kind of painted a picture of something. They gave a vibe, each of them. And I sold a bunch, you know, so I wanted to place them somewhere in a store so I didn't have to do so many booths because I do work full-time as well. So I sent a letter to this place because they do take on artisans at different times, and they had a number of them in there. So I thought I would send them pictures and a request to see if they'd be interested in selling my work. And I got a letter back basically critiquing all of it and indicating how less is more sometimes, and just pretending. You do not define what is art. You can define as a retail store what is your vibe and what you want to sell. That's perfectly legitimate. Say it that way. But don't pretend to give advice. And so after I got through my mad, the worst part of it, which was a day or two, because I had to figure out what to do about this. I just was not going to sit on it. So I managed to calm down enough to eloquently formulate an email back to them. So I used those words and said that I appreciate that my work does not suit the vibe of their retail store, but that it's best that they not pretend to be the authority on what is and is not art. But I had to get through the mad first to respond that way. And you have to remind yourself of that too, because as sad as it is, humans require validation, it seems, for things. We seem to need others to tell us we're doing a good job. And that's for everything, not just art. That's for everything. So that's a form of validation when a store says, oh, we love your work and we want to take it. Oh, I feel good for a second there, you know? So you have to not become a slave to that. If for some reason you want to do something as a business, you have to have the emotional separation then. You know, where I'm not going to create inspired art so much anymore, but these things that I've made people like, so I'm going to manufacture them. And that's fine. You've separated now emotionally from it. You're just going to churn it out and you're going to treat it like a business. That's different. And even now, like we're very much that society where we live for the likes on Facebook and the little hearts and stuff on Instagram and whatnot. It's validation. And we have to get away from that. We have to find a way to be good with who you are and what you do, regardless of who likes it. Because it's you, and you have value all by yourself with what you're making, you know. That could be a lifelong struggle, and it's a worthy challenge to feel good about, you know, who you are and your place in the world.